Hi, it's Karen Davis here from glittermesilly.com, and today I'm taking part in a fun blog hop collaboration between Avery Elle stamps and ellenhudson.com. This hop is all about throwing the spotlight on one of Avery Elle's newest product lines, which launched at Creativation this year in Phoenix, and that's the liquid watercolours. There are 10 colours at the moment which match Avery Elle's most popular pigment inks, and I'll be using most of them in this video. Instead of using them as I normally would with watercolour cardstock, today I'm showing the effects you can get when you use them with Yupo paper. I picked up this A4 pad from Amazon while I was waiting for my Ranger Yupo packs to arrive, and it is much thinner than the Ranger Yupo. It's a paper weight rather than a cardstock weight, but it still gave me really good results. I've sped up most parts of the video, but I hope you can see the different ways you can apply these watercolours to the paper and how they move and mix with each other to give really stunning effects. I will say you need to be patient if you're going to use the Yupo paper rather than regular watercolour cardstock, as it does need time to be left to dry naturally. With the Yupo being a lot less porous than the paper, it does take much longer to dry. I actually left my pieces overnight to make sure they were completely dry. If you do want to give them a helping hand here and there, then be very careful, as this Yupo paper that I'm using does warp really easily. You can ask me how I know. So I'm just adding the colours to the different pieces in various ways, just so you can see how they behave on this paper. For the first piece, I sprayed the paper with water just from a mister, and then just dropped the colours here and there and allowed them to move and spread around naturally. I used sugar, plum and cherry on that example. This second technique uses a wet brush to create an area onto which I then painted the colours, in this case celery and aquamarine. In this next example, I just applied a light layer of water to the paper, then used the bottle itself to add the paint directly. I just run the tip of the bottle over the paper, and again it allows good control of where the paint goes and how much you allow them to mix. By the way, it does look like I'm using gallons of watercolour, but I'm hardly using any at all. On this one I used Mimosa, Fizz and Cherry watercolours. Moving on, this example uses celery, aquamarine and lemongrass, and here I'm just randomly adding spots of water to the paper, then dropping the various colours here and there. I'm then able to use the brush to just bring the colours together, giving what looks like a random result but is actually quite controlled. I should also point out that as the watercolour dries, the colours do become much less intense, which ends up with really pretty subtle backgrounds. This was the result of my first experiment with this paper and the liquid watercolours, and is really what prompted me to create this video. I added a generous spray of water to the paper and just dropped large blobs of lemongrass and aquamarine onto it and just left it to dry, and that's what I got. Here's another example I made by dropping cherry, fizz and mimosa onto wet Yupo paper. I did give this one a little blast with the heat tool, as there was a small area that just wasn't drying. My heat gun has 2 settings, so I did make sure I used number 1 for a less intense heat. Once everything was dry, I needed to cut down the larger pieces to use on my card fronts. One really useful die to have on hand for situations like this is this one from Custom Panels die set from Avery Elle, and it cuts a piece that's just the right size for an A2 card. I decided what areas of the pieces looked the best and cut them using my Gemini Junior. And I ended up with a whole bunch of pieces which I can just grab when I want a quick background panel for a card. Here's all the different pieces I created, and they really took no time at all if you don't count the drying time. I just love the effect you get with which is a lot softer than if you used alcohol inks in a similar way. So after all that, I thought I would create a card using one of the pieces. I adhered one of the panels onto an A2 white card. This one was cut down from the panel I made at the beginning of the video using the sugar, plum and cherry watercolours. I wanted a large bold sentiment, so I grabbed the Hooray die from the Horizontal Stripes die collection and cut it from some gold adhesive backed glitter cardstock. I did add some white card to the back of the adhesive glitter sheet. To ground the sentiment, I used a little star frame die and cut it from white cardstock and adhered it onto the card. I decided to give the sentiment a bit more dimension, so I die cut it again a couple more times from white card and just stacked all of them up together using a liquid glue. I did decide at this point that I wanted to add to the sentiment a little, so I stamped the happy birthday from the Mom and Dad stamp set using Versamark ink and then heat embossed it using Avery Elle gold embossing powder. I just cut this into a small banner and popped it up on some foam tape and added it below the Hooray die on the front of the card. As always, I had to add just a little bit more bling, so I grabbed some gold sequins and stars and added them around the sentiment using multi-matte medium from Ranger. And here's a look at the final card and another one I created for my dad's upcoming birthday. I stamped and embossed the dad image from the Mom and Dad stamp set, and instead of using the stars frame die this time, I added some gold thread and finished off with a few sequins. Lastly, here's a look at another card I recently shared on my blog featuring the Spalsh stamp set and a watercolour Yupo panel. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. The supplies are all listed below and are available from Avery Elle and EllenHudson.com. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.